What's going on, everyone? Travis Brown at the Eagle here. This guy next to me, it's the man, the myth, the legend, the mulleted man. You mulleted still? Look at that. Look at that. That's Jay Arnold, former Texas A&M defensive lineman, also hot take extraordinaire, NASCAR video game extraordinaire.
Yeah. My last race that I ran was a win, so I'll take that.
There you go. There you go. Well, the reason we have him on today is, of course, the SEC came out with their new scheduling plan where they're going to do a 10-game all-conference SEC season this year. And Jay's a guy who played in the SEC. Just wanted to get your take. Is it going to be as daunting as it sounds on these guys to play 10 straight SEC games?
Absolutely. It's going to be probably the toughest season for most of these teams that they've played in a long, long time. You're adding 2 extra SEC games that normally wouldn't get played. So you have to think about that. Like, you're not getting the tune-up games like A&M will have a UTSA come to town. A time where, first of all, you're getting guys who are less experienced reps. So those guys aren't going to get those reps because every game is going to be a dogfight. Second of all, the guys that you do have out there who are playing most of the snaps that are going to be, how should I put this? Basically, it's going to be guys that are your starters, your guys that are playing important snaps against teams. They're not going to get any time to rest.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be there may be 1 or 2 conference games that are blowouts, but even the ones that should be tend to be not blowouts. Look at the way A&M has played Arkansas for the past 4 years. Arkansas hasn't had a great team, but there's something about those conference battles that teams just kind of get up for. And even if a game is supposed to be close or supposed to be a blowout, it could end up being close.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know a lot of A&M fans, a lot of college football fans are going to be happy because they don't have to sit through those early non-conference games, your UNTs, your Abilene Christians. You kind of mentioned it there, but what is the importance of those kinds of games to these football players who are getting ready for that first Arkansas game, which, like you said, can be quite a grind?
Well, first of all, it completely negates that 4-game redshirt rule that was in
True.
effect. I mean, that gets thrown out the window because you're not going to have the snaps that those young guys are going to see. But it's just, I do think that I'm not sure if you've seen this or not, but I think they're going to confirm 2 bye weeks at
Mm-hmm.
least for the season.
Yeah, there's gonna be one. I think it was October 12th is gonna be the one for everybody, and that's kind of like your snow day, your COVID day for everyone to make up for. And then there's gonna be everyone's gonna have one other floating bye day.
Right. I mean, I would go so far as to give 3 if I was in charge. Of course, I'm not.
We should have you in
Unfortunately,
charge.
right. I mean, with this hair, this immaculate lettuce, how could I not be? No, but it's just the wear and tear on your body is going to be something that teams just haven't seen in such a long time. It's just a more physical brand of ball whenever you're playing in the SEC. And like we said, I mean, to add 2 more games on top of what was already a tough schedule, and for some teams, let's look at somebody out of the East. You could end up with I don't know. Have they announced like the actual schedules?
No, those are going to come next week, and it could be they're going to do 2 separate conferences still, so you'll have the same
East
8
and
games,
West.
and it's
Yeah.
going to be the same other 2 East games. Ross Bjork said today, but it's going to be 2 more added on, and that the order of them can be shuffled around.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, it's going to be. I mean, let's look at A&M. Let's see. So we have South Carolina is our permanent cross
Bonham
divisional,
Trophy, baby.
right? The Bonham Trophy, and I believe who was the other
Vanderbilt.
team? Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's part of why A&M schedule is setting up so nicely. Now, I mean, you can get a Kentucky team that's tough, but not necessarily up at that level. But you could also get a Florida or a Georgia thrown in, a Tennessee program that looks like it's on the rise. I mean, it's tough. There's just not a lot of easy games in this conference. I mean, Mizzou could get thrown in there. Mizzou has been you got a new coach and Drinkwitz coming in, so we'll see what he can do with that program. But they haven't been necessarily terrible. And I'm trying to think who else is out of the East before I forget. Let's see, Georgia, South Carolina, Mizzou, Tennessee, Vanderbilt,
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Is that it?
I think we're good.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, if A&M draws like a Florida or a Georgia, that's one more probably fringe at the least top 10 team that they're getting on the schedule.
As long as they're not playing on the Florida-Georgia line, we don't approve of that.
We never, ever approve of that.
For now, it's easy for us sitting here in our little armchairs and with our headsets and our sleeveless shirts on right now to say this is this is the way, this is how hard it is, whatever. Put yourself back in your shoes or your cleats when you were playing, and if all of a sudden they came out and said, hey, you're playing 10 SEC teams this year, is that, oh crap, or is that, yeah, let's go? Like, what's the feeling there?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. Like, you want to compete against the best. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you're going to prove yourself, is compete against the very best. And now, think about 2012. I think it was A&M and South Carolina. Probably 2014.
24. That was Kenny Hill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the year before that, 2013, there was a lot of talk about Jadeveon Clowney being one of the best players in the nation at South Carolina, and Johnny Manziel being one of the best players in the nation at A&M. A lot of the lead up, I think, to SEC Media Days talked about those two guys. So now, imagine if they had gotten to compete against each other, and all the talk that it talked about. Like, I think Clowney was kind of chirping about he'd have no problem containing Johnny. And there's like a little bit of that back and forth. Well, now, all of a sudden, going back to what you said, what's the mindset? Those guys always want to compete against each other. The top of the top wants to beat the top of the top. You know, it's the old Ric Flair quote, to be the man, you got to beat the man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, so like, you can think about it one way, and yes, it is going to be a tougher schedule. But as an athlete, you should kind of relish that challenge. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's going to be tougher. You're going to need a few more ice baths than normal. But at the end of the day, it better prepares you for the next level. And it also just kind of gets you geared up for the end of the season. Mm-hmm. Flip side of that, when you play games against teams that are more physical, you're going to have more injuries. So it'll be interesting to see what the wear and tear is like in the SEC this season.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one thing I was thinking about. And that compounded with the fact, and that leads into my next question, Will, what does fall camp look like in your mind in a year where you don't have spring ball and you really don't have the summer voluntary workouts? How do you possibly get ready for a season, and especially a season that's going to be this much of a grind, without what you had in spring ball? What does that look like for you?
I think it's a catch-22 because you're also not necessarily taking the physical toll that spring ball and summer workouts take. You know, maybe some guys come in feeling more refreshed than normal. Mm-hmm. Think about your guys that would have had little injury tweaks. Instead of trying to rush to get back for spring ball, they may be able to go into fall just completely healthy, not necessarily concerned with the injuries that they may have had. But like you said, on the other side of that, your new guys coming in, not really experiencing the full summer workouts. That's going to be, I mean, true freshmen that may have come in and contributed right away. Guys like Damon Demas, who I still think is going to be a contributor, but he may not have the effect that he might have had if he had gotten a full summer workout in. Guys who we expected to improve over the spring maybe didn't get that chance. I mean, you got to think about the guys that really kind of became stars over a spring. All of a sudden, you see them in the fall, and they look incredible. They've carried that momentum over. There's not going to be any of that for most of these teams now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you mentioned the guys that needed to take some steps. I think a lot of people had their eyes focused on the offensive line. They're not getting any actual new manpower replacements in there to help boost what was maybe one of the weaker units of last season. How as you're a defensive lineman, you know those guys on the other side. How do you take those steps forward, especially in a position like that when all you're going to have is a fall camp?
Well, and that's the thing is in the trenches, there's no substitute for experience at all. Uh, it takes so much physicality to play in a league like the SEC where, you know, any given team, and we've moved away from the power ball. Most teams in the SEC at least have spread concepts, but there's still, I mean, a lot of the offensive linemen coming out of college are still coming from the SEC. It's so talented. And without having that extra practice time against your top pass rushers, or from the flip side, against your top offensive tackles, it takes away from your ability to improve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You are again, put yourself back into little 18-year-old
This
Jay
is where we
Arnold.
play the rewind sound on the soundboard,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Put yourself back in those shoes again. You're faced with a global pandemic. You're a college student. You're not a professional athlete, but you're also an invincible 18-year-old. Do you have any problem playing this upcoming season?
Uh, I think kids these days are getting more and more educated on current events, which is a great thing. Uh, it's nice to see the way the athletes are kind of learning about the impact they have and the impact their voices can have. I think Kellen Mond being a great example of that. But one thing you really have to think about is these kids at 18. I mean, I thought I was king of the world.
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody that could tell me anything. I thought I was the coolest guy in the world just because I was playing football at a school like A&M.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have kids that are even younger. I mean, all the way down to like 17 that are coming out a little bit early. And you get these guys on the campus. The thing I worry about more than anything is trying to keep these kids from throwing parties or doing whatever. I
Right.
mean, it's the thing that I think most people don't consider is that being a full-time student athlete is an incredible amount of mental pressure. I mean, and under this situation, even more so, because I think a lot of people are going to have eyes on it. Uh, Maybe not necessarily in the stands, but I think more people are going to be watching on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So every little thing that happens is going to be under a microscope. With that being said, you're also going to need mental downtime. And, for a lot of these kids, it's their first time away from home. They haven't had this kind of freedom ever. And, mistakes going to happen. And that's I think that's one thing to worry about with bringing the kids back to campus. But it's again, you said it, 18-year-olds. What were we doing at 18?
I was dreaming of one time playing slow pitch softball with you, but that's just me.
That's fair.
So
Maybe a chorizo burger in there.
maybe a chorizo burger. And then finally, with you, I believe you were on the teams that actually got the chance to play Arkansas in Fayetteville and at Kyle Field, correct?
So I didn't get to play them at Kyle Field, but I did get to play Arkansas in Fayetteville.
Okay, and that looking like things are heading in that direction. There you go. You got to. I'm interested in your take about playing those games actually on the college campus as opposed to in good old Jerry World, which is also your hometown.
Ish, yeah. Uh, College games to me belong on college campuses, especially regular season games. It's one thing if it's like a national title game. Stick that game in a stadium, people are going to show up. I just feel like Jerry World has no atmosphere. I don't know if I've talked about this with you before, but like it's just like college stadiums seem to have so much more character.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something about the stadium in Arlington that just feels so mechanical, so robotic. It's hard to really generate that intense environment. And I just think that I really enjoy going to opposing campuses, getting cursed at by opposing fans. I think that's a huge part of the college football experience. And you don't really get that as much with a stadium like Jerry World. For one, because the seats are so far back from the field. Like that's part of the negativity and that the reason why it's not as an electric of an environment. But two, these colleges are putting so much money into these stadiums, and to not play the games there, it just seems kind of counterintuitive. And I get the other reasons for it. I know they've talked about it as a recruiting tool. Uh, and I think there are some games on neutral sites that are okay. I mean, your Army Navy, Texas OU, I wouldn't want to ever move that game. But there's no reason for A&M and Arkansas to really play at a stadium in Arlington without any history when the games on campus are going to be so much more fun. That college environment, getting the tailgate, obviously this year is a little bit different, but getting the tailgate is just such a crucial part of the experience. And it's just, you don't get that full environment when you play at a place like Cowboy Stadium in Arlington.
Nothing makes you really feel that Alabama vibe like all the running water going out of the stadium like 2016. I mean,
exactly.
Now, and this is just getting way off topic, but this is my take. If you're gonna play it up there, play it at Globe Life Park. That would make things a little more interesting.
So is Globe Life Park the new Ranger Stadium, or
that's the old one?
Okay.
Was the XFL. Anyway, we're getting off track here. Let's close it out with this. I only have a limited perspective of what this would be like to play as a college football player. As you look ahead to this 2020 season, 10 games, conference only, global pandemic, everything that's going on, what is the thing that is going to be the most interesting to you to see if it works or not?
Man, there's just so many different factors that I would have never considered going into a college football season. As far as whether it works or not, I think it's, at the end of the day, it's about keeping the athletes healthy. Obviously, people want to say that some sports media personalities are rooting against having a season. I think it's more just concern for the athletes. I mean, it's the old saying about fighters in combat sports. The job of the coach is to protect the fighter from themselves. A lot of these athletes, when you're in that competitive mindset, aren't going to be thinking about themselves and their long-term health. So that's where I think coaches, ADs, everybody involved in college football, all the way up to Mark Emmert, they have a responsibility to make sure that this season is as safe as possible for the athletes. And obviously there's just so many unknowns going on. I'm really hoping it works out. I think OU, Lincoln Riley, has done a great job up there with their protocol. But I think it's just what I really want to see, and what I think will make this work is a real commitment to athlete safety from the coaches, and convincing the kids to just follow the protocol and kind of be able to realize that while this is going to suck, there's not going to be as many fans in the stands. You're not going to have the environments like normal. It's still a great opportunity to play the game and prove themselves as a competitor.
Yeah. What are you what are you maybe the most excited about with the changes? Maybe that was what maybe you're a little bit apprehensive about. What are you
nothing
but
good games.
Yeah.
Nothing but good games. I mean, even like you go to the ACC, Notre Dame's getting thrown in there. You know, look at the Big 12. Obviously, it's probably not going to happen, but I'd love to see an independent get thrown in there with some of the Big 12 teams.
BYU?
I mean, that's the one that people have been suggesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, apparently people are saying no way that happens, but I would love to see that.
As a TCU alum who in the Mountain West days, you bring back a rivalry game there. Just saying.
There you go. There you go. Dude, some of those Mountain West days with Utah, TCU, and BYU all competing for that title, was that was a lot of fun football to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yeah, good games every week. Hey, listen, we got through college football. We got through Whataburger. We got through NASCAR, and we got a combat sports mention. This was a complete Jay Arnold
experience.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Jay, thanks so much for giving us some time. Stay safe and stay healthy up there, and here's to for a good season.
Yep. Let's have a good one. Stay safe out there, folks. Travis, thanks for having me.